This is Learn from Others, where we interview a cross-section of successful individuals so you can learn from their experiences, achievements, and even their mistakes. We ask 4 questions that will educate and inspire. Greg Stanley will be your guide as we join our guest on a journey from adolescent daydreaming to success in today's world. Join us on this adventure as we learn from others together.
Welcome to Learn from Others, where we help others succeed by sharing success. I'm very excited to introduce our special guest today, Rachelle Croft. Rachelle, thank you for taking us on your career journey.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Well, before we find out what you're doing today, let's start at the very beginning, and please tell us, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, believe it or not, I wanted to be a teacher when I grew up. Yeah.
Now, was that because you had a great teacher that you just loved, or what drove that?
Yeah, that's a good question. In 4th grade, I had this amazing teacher. Her name was Miss Johnson. I know that's a very common name, but that was actually her name. And she was fabulous. She just was very motherly, but could really kind of kick you in the pants when you needed it, could be very encouraging when you needed it. And I thought to myself, I wanted to be the person standing in front of a classroom impacting people for the better.
Oh, that's really cool.
Kind of lit at it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think teachers, they have an impact that lasts a lifetime. So finding one at such a young age that impacted you that way is really fantastic.
Yeah, agreed.
So what was your first job? One where you really felt like you had responsibilities and you wanted to kind of prove yourself or own it?
My first job, well, I grew up not very well off. My family worked really hard. My dad was a mechanic, and my mom stayed home with us. And so if I wanted anything extra, I had to figure out creative ways to make some extra money. So I started off doing a lot of babysitting for my neighbors for $1 an hour.
Wow.
Yeah, I tell my kids that, and they don't even believe it. But yeah, I did a lot of that, started as soon as I could. I was always the one like, am I old enough? Can I do this yet? Am I old enough? And so I started off doing that. And eventually my very first, I guess if you want to call it real job, was I worked at McDonald's as soon as I turned 16. It was a great learning experience. It was a fantastic job, especially for me at that age. It taught me really good work ethic, and it was fast-paced. It was busy. I had to do a lot of multitasking, and I learned a lot of skills.
That's great. Great. Well, what was your favorite subject or hobby in school?
It would have to be, I would say, music and PE class.
The electives. Awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
Did you play a particular instrument?
In 5th grade, I actually played the trumpet.
Wow.
I'm trying to remember how I stumbled on that. I just thought it was really cool, and I always like to do things that other people weren't doing. So a lot of the girls were playing the flute or the clarinet, and I thought, well, I want to play the trumpet because nobody else is doing it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. So it sounds like you started off with a pretty good work ethic, trying to earn through different jobs, babysitting, and finally going to working at McDonald's. What are you doing today? And could you walk us through any education that took you to where you are, and different jobs that helped you along the way to where you've succeeded in your current role?
First and foremost, I would say that every single job I've had has helped me with where I'm at today. If I would have known what I'm doing today, if somebody would have told me I would be doing that when I was in high school or college, I would have said, yeah, right, there's no way.
There's no way.
So,
yep.
Yeah, it just really, if I could encourage people in any way, it's whatever job you're in, even if it's not your dream job, what is it teaching you now that you'll be able to learn later? So from McDonald's, I worked at Target as a cashier. I also did customer service. I worked in the food area. And then in the summers, I worked up at a Christian camp called Clydehurst Christian Ranch, and that's actually where I met my husband in high school. In high school, you could work up there for 10 weeks. And I'm a very independent person, and I thought, sweet, 10 weeks away from my home but on my own, sign me up, I'm there. And I love being outside, and I love camp. Like, that sounds like heaven to me. So, but those were very long hours, and you got paid pennies by the hour. And again, it was just reinstilling that work ethic, how to work in a fast-paced place. So every summer in high school, I would do that. And then during the year, I would have different jobs. So I had McDonald's for the year, I did Target. And then I thought to myself, I said, I really want to learn how to make coffee. Like coffee was just starting to be a thing. Starbucks was showing up. And I just thought that would be so much fun. And so I got a job at a little coffee kiosk close to my high school. So after high school every day, I would go there and I'd close down the shop, and then I would work all day Saturdays. And I loved it because I got to be by myself, which I love. I'm an introvert at heart, and do my own thing. And I learned how to make drinks and make people happy. And that was by far one of my favorite jobs.
That's cool.
From there, my husband went to Bozeman. We got married. I worked at another coffee shop, and then going back in my timeline here, I then worked at Kenzie River Pizza, which is a restaurant chain in Montana, and I worked in the kitchen as a cook, so I learned how to make and prep food, learned some culinary skills, and then I was a server. From there, we got pregnant with our first son. I'm a mom of 3 boys now, and I worked for a company called Glass Doctor, and this is where kind of what really gave me a very cool skill. The owner there actually taught me how to use QuickBooks and do accounting. And so I tell people I actually got paid to learn how to do accounting.
Right.
And that was one of the things I use, and it's an invaluable. And that taught me the company and the business that my husband and I own now.
Yeah. Speaking of which, tell us a little bit about this business and how it got started. It's
changed a lot. And if there's one thing also I've learned from having your own business, is that it's going to change, and that's okay. When my husband and I were first married, he's very creative. He deals a little bit with ADD, and I knew from the moment I met him, I thought, you will never be behind a desk. You should never be in an office all day. That will not be good for you. You need to be out and about doing things. He was in college for film school, actually, and started to pick up cameras and really love film. So he actually had a college professor tell him, you shouldn't be here. School is not a good place for you. And it wasn't. So we decided to take our college money and buy cameras and start a film business. And so that's what he did full time. And I kept kind of the steady income at that time, whether that was working in the restaurant industry or doing Glass Doctor. He would then film. He started out filming weddings. He would film, we call them soccer videos, that they were seniors sending in their applications for scholarships for other schools. So parents would hire him to come in and film that. Commercials around town, anything he could learn and get his hands on, he would film. And it didn't bring in a lot of money, but we had my little bit of income to help keep us on our feet. That's how that started. Today, we produce a show called Expedition Overland, which is a YouTube show. We basically combined all of my husband's passions into one business, which is really fun. We drive outfitted vehicles around the world, and we film a show on it and put it on YouTube for people to watch. In short, that's the short version of what we do.
It's truly amazing. Can you kind of tell us a little bit? I know you had the number of miles you've traveled in different environments.
The biggest thing we have accomplished in our company, is we have driven and filmed an episodic series of the entire Pan American Highway. And that stretches from Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, as far north as you can go, all the way as far south to the tip of South America as you can go into Ushuaia. And it took us about 5 years to complete this. Hundreds of people drive this all the time, and especially in our industry in overlanding, where we primarily have started, which is fabulous. But we hadn't seen anyone document it and really make just a series. We wanted to share it with the world of what it would look like, and what it would look like for you to see these places that would maybe inspire you to get out and want to go experience it for yourself. So that was our main objective in doing that.
Wow, that's amazing that you're able to do this as a business, first off, enjoying your passion and your pleasure, and create a business around it. Now, do you outfit the vehicles as well?
We do. We don't outfit them and sell them to people, but we outfit them for our needs. So the business model my husband and I kind of developed is we would have sponsors that would help us with the equipment of our trucks, the clothes we wear, and the equipment we use on the show as well, whether that's recovery gear or whatever that looks like. So there's kind of two parts to that. So we build up the trucks to what we need, which is a mobile film production company. We run a very small team. We don't have a separate camera team. We are the camera team. We are the expedition people. We are the talent. And then we come home and edit it and produce it and put it out ourselves. So we're a team of about 6 to 8 people. And some of those characters will kind of come in and out depending on their schedules and where they're at in their lives. But that's what really set us apart. And we knew that the equipment we use, we have to trust and use. So a sponsor comes to us and says, hey, we want to pay you to put this on your show. If we don't believe in your equipment or your product, we're not going to use it, even if you're offering us a lot of money, because we can't, in good conscience, recommend that to people. That's really important to us. So, but from where we are now, we've been able to partner with some amazing companies, Toyota, General Tire, Icon Suspension, and many others that have believed in what our vision was and have seen the quality of work we do and have continued to partner with us year after year. So it's been a really cool experience.
Yeah, and I know that's really, I looked on your website, and the vehicles you have and you've used are just amazing. And some of the video of what you're going through, the different terrains you're able to ford, whether it's a lake or a river or, whatever it is, it's truly amazing what you're able to do with those vehicles. Very interesting and exciting to think that, that's something that anyone could do, and you're giving them kind of a sneak peek in all the things that can happen on those types of treks.
Absolutely. And like I said, the biggest thing is just we hope to inspire people to find what works for them. For us, our needs are very different. We have we have cameras, we have to charge batteries, we have to offload footage to hard drives. So our vehicles are going to look a little different than maybe a person who just wants to go out 5 times a year with their kids. But the idea is hopefully that you can see what is truly out there and what you can be capable of doing.
Right. So what are some of the more challenging and rewarding aspects of being a business owner with such a unique business?
I would say it's probably different between my husband and I. For me personally, we have 3 boys, and our business takes up a lot of our time. And so we're constantly trying to find that balance. And me, especially as a mom, there's a lot of mom guilt that comes in, and there's a lot of women that I am a little unique. I grew up loving trucks, and I love cars, and I love adventures, and I love kind of adrenaline things. I'm not the type of mom to want to hang out and bake cookies or knit or crafts. I love people that love to do that. That's just not me. So for me, the biggest challenge is probably just constantly working against what people are thinking, because my role looks a lot different. So, and it's really hard to be on YouTube and to constantly read comments of people who don't understand your business or your life. And so that's something I'm constantly working towards and working through, growing on my own of, at the end of the day, I need to do what makes me happy, and our family is going to look different than other people's family, and that's okay. This is what works for us.
Right. And does that play into some of the rewards for the job? I mean, obviously the adventures are amazing.
Absolutely. It's a lot of reward. It's a lot of work. We tell people that, 30% of what you see are probably the actual travels. My husband and I spend a lot of time in meetings with sponsors and working on contracts and logistics for how to get these trucks to these places, spooling up team members, doing budgets, all that stuff that people don't see, which is great. We don't want them to see all that. We want them to see the adventure, but that's a very real part of what we do that takes up a lot of time. So people might look and see what we do and think, oh, you just travel for a living, you just drive around these cool trucks, and that's all you do. It's like, well, that's maybe a 1/6 of what we do.
Right. There's a lot more behind the scenes.
There's a lot going on behind the scenes, which I love, and my husband and I are constantly working on, okay, is this working for our family? Does this still work with what we want to do? Do we need to change the format? So it's constantly evolving and changing, and it could look completely different in 2 years than what it does now.
And could you briefly talk to how you went from this, hey, let's grab a bunch of video equipment, this off-roader, and turned it into a business where you have sponsors? Like, that's a big jump you made there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's a really big jump. So let's see. In about, I believe it was 2008 and 2009, my husband, as he was trying to get more experience with filming, he had the opportunity to actually go to Alaska and film be a cameraman on some reality shows up there. It was those summers. I think he did it for 2 summers. He was up there for between 4 and 6 weeks. And it was a very small, very low budget undertaking. And so he ended up wearing a lot of hats, and he had to figure out how to develop story and how to film and just connect all those dots for the viewer without having any training. He was just kind of thrown into the deep end.
Right.
And that skill really played into what he does now with his show. But he spent a couple summers there. He had gone to Uganda for a couple stints to film with an organization called the Uganda Orphans Fund. And he loves travel. He loves all of that. But when he came back from one of those trips in 2010, I was actually pregnant with our 3rd boy. That was kind of when Montana felt the recession from the big dip in 2007, and all of these jobs we had lined up fell through because all of a sudden these companies did not want to spend money on marketing and film work. That was an extra thing for them. So we were really at rock bottom and had never done anything like this before, and we were just kind of looking around, and he was in the garage one night and he saw his camera equipment. He had, over the years, bought everything he needed to be able to film on the fly, and he loves travel. We had his Tacoma in the garage and a Land Cruiser, older Land Cruiser we just traded for because it would fit 3 car seats in the back of it. And I thought it looked cool, so I wanted it. And he thought, man, I just learned about this thing called overlanding. He found a magazine, an Overland Journal, in one of the dealerships. And he's like, I have these 2 trucks here. I have this camera equipment, and now I have all the time in the world because everyone just dropped all their jobs. What do I do with that? And so honestly, our first sponsor, he just started cold calling people. My husband is one that's always had a lot of hobbies, and he was already wanting to build up his truck. So he just called, it was ARB, actually, a company that he admired, and he loved their gear anyway. And he said, hey, if I was to take a trip to Moab and take a bunch of photography for you, would you send me a bumper for my truck and outfit my truck? And I'll in turn give you these photos. And they said, yeah, why not? Sounds good. We don't have much footage from there. Go for it. And
Wow.
That's really how it started.
Wow, that's really cool to be able to leverage what you're going to do to make it a positive business experience for both sides. That's awesome.
Yep. Yeah, totally. Yeah, it was pretty cool. My husband is a very likable person. He's really good at casting vision and inspiring people. He definitely has that gift. So it's really fun to see him once he's passionate about something to sell that, and people just can't help but want to get on board with what he's doing. It's really fun to watch.
That's great. Before we move on to our next question, let's take a moment to hear from our sponsors. Do you enjoy your job and find it fulfilling? Or do you spend more time wondering what if instead of what's next? If so, contact Career Spa. Career Spa has extensive programs and curriculum and understands the challenges faced by individuals in transition. They can teach these success practices to be mastered for an effective job search. Answer that what if question by contacting Career Spa and asking their experts, what's next? Contact Career Spa at careerspa.net. Talent acquisition is key to building a successful organization. Talent Connections is a professional services firm that specializes in recruiting, including executive search, contract recruiting, talent acquisition consulting, and recruitment process outsourcing. Whether you are an individual or a Fortune 100 company, Talent Connections can connect you with success. Contact them at talentconnections.net. Welcome back. Well, we learned what you wanted to be when you grew up and what you're doing today. So if you could do it all over again, what would you do differently? I know being a business owner, there's probably a lot of things you do differently, or maybe you hit it right the first time.
Yeah, that is a great question. I would have to say, I mentioned earlier my husband and I actually met in high school, and we dated, and I got married in college. If I had to do it over again, I would take a year in between when I graduated and college, and I would go travel. Whether that was with a friend or even by myself, I would just go. Whether that be live in a different culture, learn the language, but you learn so much by travel that you cannot learn in school, and it's just invaluable information.
Right. No, I totally agree.
That's what I would do.
Yep. Okay. Well, what advice would you give someone who would like to start up their own business? Now, it doesn't have to be specific to a YouTube TV show unless you want it to be. What advice would you give them?
I've been doing a lot of kind of, soul searching, if you will, on even my own stuff. And because my passions are definitely a lot different from my husband's, and I love the off-road aspect, and I love racing, and I love helping and teaching women, I would have to say just start somewhere and start simple. So you don't realize, I'm a very big picture person, and I think in my mind, okay, well, someday I want to get to X, Y, and Z, where I'm traveling the world and I'm speaking to millions of people, and I'll just never get there. That can be overwhelming. So how do you go backwards and break that down into a tangible goal that you can start doing tomorrow? So whether that's, well, in order to do that, I need to be in good shape. Maybe I should start working out. Or in order to do that, I need to have a social media following. So what do I do? All right, well, I'll start a social media account. So break it into very small, attainable steps, because once you start that momentum and kind of start pushing that snowball down the hill, it's going to keep picking up momentum, and each step gets a little less scary. And it's really cool to see the people that will come around you and the people you will meet that you had no idea were out there that can help you on that goal in your journey.
That's awesome. Yeah, I totally agree, because sometimes it's overwhelming. You can see what you want to do. You can see the end result, but it just can be overwhelming when you don't know that first step. And sometimes it's just taking the first step, and it might be the wrong first step, but just to take one.
Totally. Absolutely. Yes.
Well, are there any current projects you're working on that you would like to share?
You know, that's also a really good question. My husband is actually currently in Australia. They're doing some filming for the show on YouTube. They're filming for 2 episodes. I personally am really trying to figure out what this life looks like for me. I would love to teach women how to get into, whether it's off-roading or just skills with their vehicle, anything I can teach them outside that gives them a little bit of confidence with their vehicle and able to travel on their own. So that's something I'm putting together a new business idea actually as we speak. So hopefully within the year or year and a half, I'll have it kind of lined out with better goals. I would love to do some more races and just kind of see where that leads me.
That's great. And we'll stay in touch on that, because I know a lot of women. My wife actually has a Toyota FJ and would love to be romping around the hills and the woods and the mud with that.
Heck yes. It's so much fun.
As with most journeys, success largely depends on reliable transportation. And since I'm a huge car enthusiast, could you tell us, what was your first car?
My first car was actually a little 1989 Honda Civic, and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, that's a great car. That's a great car.
Yep.
So what is your dream car?
Ooh, what is my dream car? It changes constantly. So my dream car would probably be, if I'm going the sports car route, would be probably a Porsche 911. I've always loved those since I was young, and they just look really fun to drive. And if I'm going like building up a race off-roading vehicle, I really love the Toyota 4Runners. There's just something about them I've always loved.
Yeah, and it looks like you do have a lot of experience with those, so you would know.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, one great perk to some jobs is a company car. So if I had all the money in the world, I'd love to buy you a really cool company car. And based on your job as a business owner and this wonderful off-road adventure you're having, this one was actually kind of tough. It's hard to pick a car for a car person. So forgive me if this is too spot on. Originally, I was thinking off-roading, maybe one of those old Packards in the 30s that you went across country before there were roads everywhere. I thought maybe that would be cool. But I went a little bit more traditional because I know you guys love Toyotas. So I actually picked the 1964 Toyota FJ4 45 LV. Are you familiar with that particular one?
Yes, I think I am. Those are fantastic.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a large sport ute wagon, but it's got the iconic FJ front. It's a 4 doors because you've got kids, you need all your gear and everything. And the cool part about it is I figured, you know what, get one of those companies and have it put AC and power steering, power brakes, all that kind of stuff, and then you could outfit it to your heart's desire. It has the ambulance doors on the back, so you can attach a tent there easily. So when you're going off-roading, you have plenty of room.
I love it. That sounds like a blast.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Well, good. Well, thank you so much for taking us on your journey. What's the best way our listeners can learn more about you and your company?
Yeah, so if you go to YouTube, our YouTube channel is YouTube/Expedition Overland. You can watch videos to your heart's content there. You can follow us on Instagram at XOverland on Instagram and Facebook. My own personal pages are Rachelle Croft on Instagram and Facebook as well.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for taking us on your career journey.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure, and I appreciate you taking the time with me today.
Thank you for listening to Learn from Others, where we help others succeed by sharing success. Where will our next adventure take us? Subscribe to find out. If you know of someone who has a cool career story or occupation, contact Greg through Instagram at Greg Stanley LFO. That's GregStanley LFO. And we will see you soon as we learn from others together.